I felt like I was rediscovering a piece of myself after all that happened. There was this strange contentment. A question, however, remained unanswered. Is there a chance I could survive that night? The truth is that I am unsure. This much though I knew, it would stick with me forever. Every nuance, every feeling, every ounce of comfort. Returning to a place of authentic femininity. Those were invaluable. I felt like I had won the race when that happened. A transformed version of myself, a transformed woman. Perhaps this was merely the first step. My stepgrandson Barry came over to lend me a hand with the relocation. However, little was accomplished despite a long and tiring day that continued far into the night. I had to get in the shower since I was so exhausted and perspiring profusely. After I stepped out, I had no idea what was going to happen. Our shared experiences. I had no idea what was going on because there was no sound except the sound of the water around me. It was like a whole new world. Simply put, Barry had dropped over to offer a hand. He's youthful, gorgeous, and as bright as a whip at 29 years old. I spent years on my own, trying to put my life back together after my spouse Frank's untimely death. After Frank passed away, it wasn't easy to hold on to this place and this existence. However, Barry responded in ways I had not anticipated when I contacted him. There would be no problems, he assured me that day. He was always there to provide me a hand. In his company. To me it seemed like a glimmer of optimism. I had to pay him, that much was clear. Your thoughtfulness and kindness greatly facilitated the shifting process. However, that too disturbed me. What a wonderful young man. How charming and confident. On occasion, though, I couldn't suppress this unexplained sensation. An unfamiliar sensation. I even made an effort to ignore it. I realized at the age of 62 that it's best to keep some feelings bottled up. I finished my shower while clutching the rope's edge, thinking about all this. Despite my advanced years, my figure maintained an air of freshness and allure. I exercised regularly, but I still hadn't noticed a significant difference in my appearance throughout the years. The moment to live and feel is still here, I muttered to myself. Despite this, there were moments when I felt exposed due to the escalating isolation that comes with being my age. I was unaware that Barry was already in my room when I went to change. I forcefully opened the door and he was in the midst of making a change. It seemed as if time stood still. His physique, his strength, his gait. Witnessing this 29-year-old man stand there was incredibly dramatic and purposeful. Something in me was aroused by it. I couldn't tear my gaze away. As if time had halted for all eternity. I couldn't quite get the message conveyed by his composed and self-assured stare. Are you prepared? Reason being, this isn't your average narrative. Embark on a trip where boundaries become porous, emotions clash, and silent confessions shout. Any given second could bring to the surface emotions you were previously unaware of, testing the boundaries of your comprehension. Please subscribe to my channel and enable notifications if you would want to support me if you are interested in this type of story. A scarcely audible "I'm sorry" escaped my lips. You shouldn't have been this way. At that moment I saw Barry approach me. Just what was going on? Exactly how was I expected to feel? Within me there was a void, yet I also felt a pull. Attracted to a magnetic field. I had no idea what was going to happen at that very time. But it was obvious of one thing. At this point everything had changed. Perhaps this shift had been simmering for some time. It appeared like I caught Barry off guard when I looked at him, but he kept his cool and seemed certain. It's all right. He told me I had no business being here. With the house still in such disarray, I figured here would be the perfect place to make a change. I was surprised to see that you dried off from the shower before I did. I apologized for it. The more he spoke, the more anxious I became. I was completely unaware of how physically and emotionally close I had become to him. I mumbled something about how sorry I was, Barry. Still, I didn't feel strong enough to say much. Uncertain of my next move, I pivoted about. I wanted to get out of here more than anything else. The events of the previous few seconds escaped me, but I wasted no time getting to work. Excuse me, I whispered softly. Without further ado, I will grant you some solitude. I experienced an unusual sensation on the inside as I strained to softly shut the door. Nothingness per se. A tug. I am simply curious. I felt a pull, like if I were meant to pursue something, but I had no idea what. With a deliberate pace I left the room, leaving the door slightly ajar. Suddenly, I felt an overwhelming need to give in to this secret need and observe. I was overcome with an unfamiliar sensation that made me feel incredibly old. I slowly made my way back to the entrance. Subtly and with care, I gently prodded it open little. Barry had not yet fully transformed. Just for a brief moment I chose to observe. As he moved, I watched his unkempt hair cascade over his forehead and his muscles tense up. I stood by and allowed him to carry on, oblivious to my presence. Perhaps he felt something, perhaps he didn't. The time was too precious for me to let pass. Something I couldn't put my finger on filled me as the room's tension engulfed me. I was unable to resist. I scrutinized every inch of that room. I was captivated by Barry's every action. His muscular, well-sculpted physique drew me in. His clothing clung to him, and his muscles moved beneath his skin. All of it combined to provide an irresistible magnetism. I was awed by his good looks all over again. With her verdant eyes, blonde hair, and harmlessly attractive confidence, she had an irresistible charm. It was all quite terrifying. A tempest of feelings was brewing in my chest, and not even the emergence of remorse could calm it. Keeping a close eye on Barry and taking note of his every action, a rush of emotions, guilt, loneliness, and excitement, overwhelmed me and I found myself gasping for air. I persisted, though. I couldn't take my gaze off of him. I lingered for a while longer. With an air of uncertainty, Barry undressed, reached for a towel, and made his way to the bathroom to get in the shower. Every curve and muscle in his body appeared almost closer than they actually were at that particular second. An undisclosed thrill had my heart racing. There was an intangible chasm between us, despite how near we were. Then it hit him. He caught me in the act as his eyes met mine. There was a halt to time. My cheeks turned red and my pulse raced. My body didn't budge, even though I wanted to retreat and vanish. Barry moved closer, remaining silent. I could sense his every move, the way the air shifted as he drew near. A significant event was on the horizon. Whatever it was, I was certain I couldn't stop it. Boris extended his hand, his grip firm and self-assured. He must have noticed the bewilderment and doubt reflected in my eyes. A new vibe seemed to be floating around, something that changed the game. Afterwards, he silently guided me to the bed by taking my hand. I don't understand. Absent expression. It was as simple as sensing his hand leading me purposefully yet delicately. Something shifted at that very second. At a slow but certain pace. The world shifted. At the height of the room's tension, my heart was racing, but time appeared to have frozen. As I sat on the side of the bed, my thoughts and emotions slipped my mind. However, something did exist. An unfamiliar sensation. Barry's grip on my hand did not release. I felt an overwhelming attraction to him, and my eyes widened in disbelief. Because of how near we were, I could make out his every breath and felt his heartbeat throbbing in my chest. I could feel his focus on me, yet the way he spoke and the expression on his face simply served to heighten the tension in the room. Slowly Barry spoke. Rest assured, though. He spoke with a tone that seemed to emanate from deeper places when he told you that you're stunning. For the first time tonight, I am experiencing something similar. You have this new attraction I'm experiencing for you. At first, I didn't understand what he was saying. All sorts of contradictory ideas were racing through my head. However, Barry persisted. What you did should have made me angry. Your observation of me should have made me want to flee, yet I stayed put. I opted out. It was a good experience for me. Such audacity on your part. That failure to restrain oneself. Charming you. He mentioned that it was drawing him nearer to you. I was captivated by his every word and letter. Even though my thoughts were all over the place, my heart was pounding. My first move in a state of shock was an unconscious, intuitive one. My growing sense of bewilderment intensified with each step I took toward him. I was unable to resist. He had a way of both captivating and shattering my heart with his remarks. My eyes began to brim up with tears. The audacity of Barry's confession and the manner he demonstrated his interest. It was more than I had anticipated. I could feel myself being ensnared in the intimacy, captivated by an increasing feeling of not understanding, yet unable to refuse. That evening, hours of thrilling tension ensued from what began as an odd and unexpected occasion. The attraction I felt for him intensified as time went on, Despite the fact that I still had a look of disbelief in my eyes, nothing could have prepared me for the night. I realized I had totally lost track of time when Barry stood up to go to the shower. It had been 2 hours. 2 hours when everything else in the world seemed to melt away, leaving only the two of us in this peculiar, indisputable bond and all that we had been through together. As I struggled to make sense of my conflicting emotions, guilt and an unexplainable rush, my heart continued to race. In order to get to the shower, Barry stood up and left his clothing behind, painstakingly, but in a manner that captured my interest. He made no effort to retrieve the garments he had discarded beside my robe and dress. He merely picked up his towel and left. At that same second, it seemed like everything had changed. I was at a loss for words as I tried to make sense of what had transpired and the range of feelings I was experiencing. I was paralyzed by the sheer magnitude of it all. His every motion, even the expression on his face as he snatched the towel, kept playing in my head. For some reason I couldn't get it out of my head. For a split second, I was at a loss as to what to do because of the overwhelming sense of both excitement and anxiety I was experiencing. Attempting to collect myself, I chose to exit the room. Although my thoughts remained disorganized, my physical sensations conveyed a very different message. My nightgown and other clothing were quickly retrieved. Everything was magnified by that peculiar warmth that coursed through me with each stride. The feeling was so strange. Something had to be done. This night I had to just get through it. The question is, how? I made my way to the kitchen, trying to find answers to the questions swirling around in my thoughts. After sorting through all the kitchenware, I finally located a bottle of wine. To ease into the night and settle my anxiety, I decided to open a bottle. I nervously cracked the cork and poured myself my first drink. All of my senses were aroused by the mesmerizing red liquid as it swirled into the glass. Taking a few swallows and exhaling deeply, I waited for Barry to complete his shower. Even now I felt anxious, but I had a feeling something fresh was on the way. My mind was a jumbled mess that night. I felt like I was living in a tangled web of emotions, and every moment felt related. It was something I would never forget. After getting out of the shower, Barry changed into his underwear and returned to the room. Under the light, the water droplets that adhered to his skin and hair glistened. He seems totally relaxed. Perhaps too relaxed. It seemed like the tension between us was already there. But that solace he was carrying just made it worse. His eyes landed on me as he hurried toward the kitchen. The intensity in his gaze was cautious and conflicted. It felt as though we were both ensnared in this peculiar moment, bound together and unable to break free. Wine? My voice cracking, I inquired. His very presence seemed to stir something deep within me, and I was helpless to fight off the attraction he evoked. He didn't seem to notice that my voice was trembling, even though he probably did. As he approached, Barry raised his glass. I had never seen anything like that in his eyes. Are you aware of this? His eyes were locked on mine as he spoke carefully. Visiting this place may rank among my most beneficial choices in life. Having this kind of time here with you, communicating verbally. Last night we shared. He moved in closer, eventually obliterating the distance between us. After that, he crossed his legs and sat down on the chair next to me. Nothing seemed far away, and the intensity was overwhelming. I was unsure of what to do. I merely wished to experience the sensation. Yet, my voice quivered slightly as I uttered the words. This evening. I haven't felt this energized in a very long time, but it has done it. Imagine this. Isn't something shifting? My hands were wobbly yet strangely calm as I slightly lifted my glass. Barry smiled gently at me as I stared into his eyes. The emotional whirlwind inside of me seemed to only intensify. Carmen, I mean it. Being in your presence. It is unparalleled. So near, so genuine. I don't think I've ever experienced anything quite like this. Now that we were getting near, I could almost hear his breath. He drew closer, closing the already little distance between us. In my opinion, you're experiencing it as well. Is that so? He inquired. I had never seen the light in his eyes before. This bond that we share. It's more than simply the body. This goes beyond the surface level. I sense it. Words choked me, so I cocked my head ever so slightly. Sure we are. I lowered my voice to a whisper, drawing the room in closer till I could feel his heat. Nevertheless, it's not easy to understand. I am at a loss for action. As my heart pounded against my chest once again, my eyes raced to meet his and then away. Barry moved in closer yet, and he put his delicate hand in mine. When our flesh touched, the sensation was so intense that it seemed as though time had halted. "Hi, Carmen." As he spoke softly, he told you not to say a word. However, there is a connection between us. Seems obvious to me. In any case, we were silent for some time. We looked at each other directly. All of our unspoken thoughts and feelings become more apparent in that stillness. After taking another step closer, Barry delicately cradled my face with his hands as he observed the inner conflict reflected in my eyes. He leaned in my direction after taking a long breath.
Carmen.
He spoke in a soft, gentle tone. It dawned on me tonight. It was luck that helped Frank. Though his remarks awoke a deep-seated unease in me, they also revealed something new. To experience what Barry felt when he looked at me, in order to get his opinion, it threw me into a tornado of feelings from which I never recovered. I had no idea what to do or how to feel at that very second. Yet his words, it had the greatest impact on me. "Sure thing, Barry, that is difficult to hear." My voice quivered as I spoke, but at the same time, this is the real deal. With his hands removed from my face, Barry stood before me. He just stares at me the whole time. Something I'd never felt before happened when our eyes met. A comforting embrace. "One link. Carmen, you have company," he whispered. His palms delicately crept up my waist. "You can count on my unwavering support." My mind was cleared of all disorderly thoughts by those words. At this precise second, this very night, everything seemed more profound than I could fathom. Every remark and glance had its own weight because of how close we were.
Bye.
Attempting to conceal the emotional storm seen in my eyes, I whispered. Feeling this way is really challenging. In order to comprehend my emotional state, what I should do precisely. However, his words just served to heighten the significance of the evening. As Barry drew nearer, his hands delicately ran down my back. "Carmen is somebody I know." With a gentle tone he spoke, almost barely audible. "However, I have a feeling. Something tangible. Tonight I went with my gut. Being here with you was my desire. In order to convey this to you, I can sense it in you as well. Always remember that you have support. Without you I can't exist." At that same second I sensed a complete change in our relationship. We were both burdened by the significance of this night. I knew I had to embrace my emotions regardless of how challenging it was. Barry's gestures, his speech, and just being there. In their grasp I was being drawn nearer to him. Posing it, blocking it out. Everything had become illogical. Even as Barry firmly gripped my hands, together we walked. Bit by bit, amongst the disarray of the unpacked house and its half-empty boxes and strewn possessions, something new was added to the area. It was irrelevant now. Our little group, tranced by the present. Upon our arrival at the room, I cautiously closed the door to our departure. The intimacy, the haze of feelings, and the warmth of the atmosphere. We got the impression that it was leading us to a fresh start. Calm thunder and utter chaos. In unison they all whirled around. There was a split second when neither the past nor the future entered my mind. This is everything that happened right now. Our shared quiet wasn't meaningless. We owned it. The bond we had for one another was strengthened by it. My goal for the evening was to make it last as long as possible. Our connection deepened and intensified with each passing second. One thing was certain regardless of what the future contained. This night this emotion was crucial. I could feel the night slipping away when the door gently slammed shut. It was obvious what was going to happen next. A sea change was on the horizon. Something fresh and significant started this night. I pray my tale was entertaining to you. It's been an incredible experience to share this with you. Your support is invaluable. Remember to subscribe if you would like to hear more stories similar to this. Additionally, enable notifications to get notified as soon as a new chapter is available. I much appreciate your likes and comments. Sharing your reactions to the story is something I really enjoy. More than you can imagine, it inspires me to work harder so that I can provide you with even more. Your support is greatly appreciated, and I will see you in the future story.